Hi there. Blue Scarf, RE, Christmas, and this is the last lesson in our RE unit. It is going to mean that you're going to need to listen carefully because this is our extended writing task for this unit, and I want you to really show off your writing. I'll just give you a bit of a clue. It's a persuasive text. We did persuasive texts just before Christmas, so you have a really good knowledge of the sorts of things that you should be using in a persuasive text. Go to that a bit later. Right, so let's share this screen and you will see that our what for this lesson is to make links between the circumstances of Jesus' birth and the people in similar circumstances today. So the steps we need to achieve that, so our steps of success are: consider the implications of the setting of Jesus' birth, consider the current situation for homeless people and refugees, make suggestions as to how to improve the situation, write persuasively, and back up your ideas with really clearly explained biblical links. You can do this. What books were we thinking of during this Christmas unit? Which book of the Bible did we focus on? Think about the things that were said in Matthew. You might also find something appropriate in the work that we did in Advent from John, and there may be other biblical extracts that you would like to back up your arguments. We'll get to that later. What I want you to think about first, get my mouse to work, is what have you learned about the Christmas story? What new way of looking at the Christmas story have you achieved? Because it is an achievement to put yourself in the position of others. Because we don't, at Christmas, it's very rare that we would do that. We think so much, if we're lucky, you children will think about this precious gift we were given by God. It's not something that we unwrap. It's not something that we can physically see. It's much, much more special than that. That's what we would hope for. But actually, I think you've taken a step further this unit, and I think that you have been able to put yourselves into the position of those main characters. So some of you will have put yourself in the position of Herod. Some of you will have put yourself in the position of Mary or the innkeeper, and all of you will have put yourself in the position of Joseph. They've all got very different views on the same story. But think about their feelings. So what have we learned? Well, we've learned that it was tough, wasn't it? We learned that people were scared as well as overjoyed. We've learned that different people felt differently about this very same story in history. So there's all those things to consider. Now, let's have a look at this picture. Nice picture, isn't it? It's the sort of thing that we get on so many Christmas cards. Do you think Jesus's birth looked like this? What do you think? What aspects of that image do you think could be true? And what do you think is just pure imagination, fiction? Give you a little bit of time to look carefully at the details there. There are some lovely little details, which I'm sure you will pick up on as well. Okay. Because I can't ask you to respond to me, I'm going to share some of my thoughts on this and see if you agree. So I'm thinking, well, we know that there was a star above the stable. We know that from the Bible, this was true. So that element, it might not quite have looked like that, but it was certainly shining over the stable. Was the stable like that? Or could it have been a little bit different? Would we have had the animals inside or not? Well, certainly, I think, yeah, there would have been some animals in the stable. And the manger would probably have looked, would it have looked like that, or would it have looked a bit different? It might have looked like that if we were in Britain. A manger would look similar to that. That's where they put all the hay for the animals to eat. And then we look down at these little pots. This is getting into fine detail. Those are exactly the sort of pots that they would have had at that time. Would we have had all those different types of animals together? Probably not. Would we have seen those angels? Probably not. But don't forget, in religious pictures, there's an awful lot of symbolism, isn't there? As there is in some of the Bible stories. So we've got the dove there. We've got an olive branch there. What are they signs of? Yeah, peace. Things I like about this image is that the wise men, they look as if they've been traveling. They don't look as if they've just stepped out of a palace, which would have been the case. The halos, would there really have been halos, or would it just be like a sense of glowing coming from Mary and Joseph and Jesus? I think it would have been more like a sense rather than a visual round halo. But who knows? I wasn't there. I also like the way they have got palm trees to suggest the part of the world that this was set in. Would all the people have been this white? I think given the area of the world it is set in, probably not. Those are my initial thoughts. So, consider this. Mary and Joseph would have been just on a very long, tiresome journey by foot in the cold, because it would have been very cold at night, very hot during the day, most likely. When they arrived, they found nowhere to stay, and everyone turned them away, despite the fact that Mary was clearly heavily pregnant. How do you think this would have felt? Let's put our Mary back on. We've not stopped putting ourselves in people's shoes. Okay. Oh, Joseph, I'm so tired. This baby is exhausting me. I'm not sleeping properly. It's fidgeting around. I just don't seem to get any sleep. I'm tired. I'm hungry. Please, can we just find somewhere to rest? Joseph. Get into the Joseph character now. Oh, Mary. Why can't we find anywhere? I'm tired too. I'm worried about you. Our poor little donkey is just exhausted. Maybe somebody will take pity on us. Mary, I've just come and spoken. I've just come from speaking to an innkeeper. He hasn't got a room, but he said we can go and sleep in his stable. It may not be perfect, but it's somewhere with shelter, it's somewhere warm. May not be ideal sharing with animals, particularly with you about to give birth, but maybe they'll give us a bit of warmth. And at least we'll have the soft hay to sleep on. Now, The innkeeper, he's looked at this woman who's heavily pregnant and a man who's exhausted. And he's just thought, I wish I could offer them more. I really wish I had a room for them. But I suppose my stable is better than nothing. So we've thought about how those people are feeling again. And that is really important, that we put ourselves in the position of others, because then we can better understand their needs. But this is going to go on. We're thinking about people in similar situations in the world today. Have you ever been homeless? Fortunately, I haven't. Have I been hungry? Again, fortunately, not really hungry. I mean, yeah, we've all felt a bit peckish, but I mean seriously hungry, seriously tired. I have felt seriously tired at times, but not on top of everything else. And really need to think about how they must have felt. And there are people in the world today who have felt just that. So in biblical times, this is what a manger in that sort of area of the world would have looked like. It would have been a stone one. And if we look over here, this is what a stable would have looked like. So it's not got doors on it, it is open. Lots of stones and hard ground. We have got another sort of manger in that one, although I would suggest that this is much more likely. Definitely you would have been sharing a stable with animals. Maybe not as many as in that picture though. Would that have been very comfortable? No, but at least you'd have had shelter, wouldn't you? And you'd have been grateful for that. It would have definitely been warmer than being out in the open. So what happened after the birth? Jesus is born. We've had the excitement, and then comes a scary bit. They were forced to flee to Egypt instead of being able to return to their family. Can you imagine how scared they must have felt? You know, this is it. You are having the responsibility of God's Son, the Messiah, the King of Kings, the King of the Jews, all that responsibility on you, as well as the fact that this is your son, because Joseph, even though he was looking after him on God's behalf, he was still the father on earth, wasn't he? He was still taking care of Jesus. He loved him. And Mary and Joseph must have been beside themselves, knowing that Herod was killing all these baby boys. So they had to get out quick. But they had another long, long journey, many, many days, maybe even weeks of worrying about whether they were going to get out of the country without their son being killed. And why did they have to do this? Because Herod was worried, wasn't he? Maybe a bit jealous as well. Just think for a moment, put yourselves in their position. What must it have been like going back on those dusty, hard, stony roads with just a donkey and your bare feet? Not good, hey? And not only did they have the stuff that they had taking Mary and Joseph to Bethlehem, they've got a baby as well. You know, a baby to care for, to feed, to make sure that Mary had enough to drink so that you could feed the baby. So what do you think these circumstances tell us about Jesus? Oh, he had a hard start to his life, didn't he? But although there was a hard start to life, it also told us that he was loved. He was loved by Mary and Joseph in the first place. He was loved by God. It told us that he was special. What else did he tell us? Think about Christmas cards you've received, carols we sing at Christmas time. What else is he known as? As a prince of what? Think about the symbolism as well in those Christmas cards. So he was the Prince of Peace, wasn't he? And he brought hope. I'm sure you can think of many other things as well. I'm going to move us along a bit because this gives us an understanding of what we're going to do today. But we're looking at comparing similar circumstances of situations today people find themselves in. So as Christians, what responsibility does all that about Jesus place on us? So he's been through all sorts, hasn't he? He's loved. He brings hope. He's a Prince of Peace. He's there to help us move on and have a better life. And we know that he gave his life for us. God gave him to us, and God took him away from us. We need to help those who are homeless and in need, just like the innkeeper helped Mary and Joseph when they were most in need. Just like the angels came down and gave good advice. We are co-creators. We have a responsibility to care for others, not just ourselves. And so let's have a think. When in the scriptures did Jesus help others? Think of one. I'm thinking feeding of 5,000. Another, the lepers. Lepers, not leopards, lepers. The girl that was blind, wasn't it? A man that was blind. When else has he helped? Oh, do you know what? I'm going to leave that to you. I'm sure you can think of lots and lots of different examples and keep them in your head, because when you write your persuasive letter, it would be really good to refer to those times, because that would help with your arguments and persuasion, which you'll think about later. So keep those ideas in mind. And also keep in mind about Jesus as well. Right, our country today. I think most of you, when you've been into town, for instance, you'll have seen lots of homeless people huddled up in doorways with their sleeping bags. Some of them got dogs with them, who are perhaps the only friends that they've got left. We will have also seen that we get a lot of refugees coming over. On the news, it's often about the refugees that have come over crammed, I mean, really crammed into boats, and they often sink and they have to be rescued, and some of them don't survive. They are so desperate to get out of their own country because of the threat to their lives that they are willing to risk their life to go on these small boats for a bit of safety over here. Likewise, you get people that are crammed into extraordinarily small spaces in lorries, or they hide underneath lorries by the axle, risking their lives, because those axles, when they go round, get not only very hot, but if the refugees' clothes get caught in them, it can risk their lives and limbs. It's a desperate, desperate people, just as Mary and Joseph must have felt desperate to protect the life of baby Jesus. We've got people who are homeless, and I think particularly at the time, this particular moment in time with the COVID problem, with people losing jobs, not having enough money, even people furloughed if they're on a low wage already, and then having to lose another 20% of that. Desperate, desperate people at the moment, losing their homes. They can't afford to pay their rents or mortgages. Some of them can't afford to buy food. We are lucky that there is the kindness of others that have brought about a lot more food banks, that people donate food to the food banks to help others. Can you imagine? Those of you at home, maybe you have felt it at times. Maybe you have felt that your parents are getting more and more worried, and it's worried you. You need to talk to people about that as well. But we need to do things, don't we? Imagine what it's like to be thrown out of your home with nowhere to go. That you might have to travel a long way. That you're struggling to get food. It makes my heart ache. I don't know about you. But we can do things, can't we? That's a positive thing. Particularly in this country, we can do things to help. And there are people there to help us help others. That's a positive. But I want to read this to you now. It's a very sad situation. We don't think of this sort of thing happening in our country. As you see, it's quite long. I'm going to go back to a bigger writing because my old eyes need a bit more help here. So this is also attached to your daily schedule. So if you had wanted to print it out, if you have a printer, then it'll be easier for you to read. So this is what it's like to be 11 years old and homeless. This is just one account. And it is a true account, even though the names have been changed. At Christmas time, I didn't want to be in this world. In the temporary accommodation block for the homeless, 11-year-old Sam tells you about life in a flat so cramped that he, his brother, sister, mum and dad can't all sit in the living room at the same time or eat at the same table. Dad, whose restaurant business once provided a happy, stable family home, now lies desperately ill with inoperable terminal brain tumour. Sam and his younger brother share a room, even though everyone accepts they shouldn't. The 10-year-old's younger brother, recently diagnosed with ADHD, means that he has tantrums and can lead him to get up in the night and attack Sam. The third bedroom is so crammed with medical equipment for Dad and other storage that there's hardly any space for Sam's older sister, who's just turned 18. At a time when the family desperately wants to be together during Dad's final months, Sam's much-loved older sister, really helpful, she looks after me the best, has had to spend weekdays away at her grandmother's so she can study for her A-levels. Sam's mum says she's been asking for a property that would allow the family to live together since June 2016. I'll point out that this is about 18 months after that. But with social housing now so hard to find, she says she had repeatedly been told there's not enough housing out there for us. Bright and articulate, Sam, which isn't his real name, speaks with a poise and politeness that is striking. You might think he is wise beyond his years, but he might tell you that he has no choice. With Dad ill and sister away so often, I feel I have to help my mum. There's no one else to help her. He checks on his dad every night to make sure he's all right. His mum had to stop him from selling his toys. I thought I may be able to use the money to buy Dad a gift. I want to see my dad more happy and stuff. Mum talks to him about feeling he has to be the man of the house, but Sam is just still a boy, 11 years old, whom only weeks ago finished primary school. When he describes his lowest moment, last Christmas, when everyone else seemed so happy, he falters. I felt I just wanted to, I didn't want to be in this world. The fear is that all over the country there are more and more children like Sam. I think that's especially true at the moment. So be considerate of all the people around you. Someone might be going through something quite similar. So be kind. What I want you to do now is think about ways in which the council could help. I'm going to give you, just pause the video for a minute and have a think of all the different ways the council could help. Right, I hope you've come up with a few ideas. Ones that I've thought of, let's see if you can tick them off the list that you may have thought of. So I think food banks. A food bank's great, but they need somewhere to be based. The council could help with that, couldn't they? Another way, shelter or homes. It's true enough that there are not enough houses or flats to go around. But what about office blocks? You know, we've got loads of empty office blocks. Maybe they could help with that. What else could the council help with? Well, clothes. Surely they can appeal for clothes. Emergency funding, so money. What else could they do? They could perhaps make the public aware. So, you know, if they made the public more aware, they might get some people who perhaps live in a big house on their own. Maybe they'll be willing to share. What else? They need, what would you need if you were homeless? you'd want to feel safe, wouldn't you? You'd want to feel as if people were listening. So maybe listening ears. So if they're listening, they're recognising there's a problem. Those are just a few ideas I came up with. I bet you've got lots of other ideas too. So think about those as well. And your task is you're going to write a letter to the council expressing your concern for the number of homeless people in Cheltenham. And in your letter, suggest how these people could be helped. There is a growing number of homeless people. That's undoubtedly there is. You've only got to go into town, particularly at night time, and see the amount of homeless people there are. I'm not suggesting you go, definitely not on your own, but I can tell you there are an awful lot of homeless people. So you're going to write a letter to the council. How's it going to start? Who are you going to address it to? Think about the features of a persuasive text. So it's going to need an introduction. It's going to need points that need backing up. It's going to need a conclusion. So that's the general format. What do you need to include in it? Well, you need to include emotive language. So that means, you're really going to push it home. You're going to exaggerate a bit. You're going to need to use persuasion. So every point you make, you're going to have to back up, aren't you? And remember I said to think about all the good things Jesus did. If you can refer to the Bible and remind the council that we are a Christian country. I know we've got lots of other faiths in the country, but we are a Christian country predominantly. All those things. So let's go through. You need to make at least 3 different points. You've got a whole list of things down there. Let's just look at those together. So you've got all that. You know what a persuasive text needs to be a good persuasive text. I want excellent persuasive texts. I want to feel, because I'm going to put myself in the role of a council leader when I read these. You know what I'm like about getting into role? Love it. I'm going to be a council leader, and I want to be able to pick up one of your letters and think, I'm persuaded, I'm going out there, I'm going to do something, I'm going to get all my colleagues on board with this. That's what I want you to do. Extended writing, so we're not talking about half a page. We are talking about clear points. I would like at least 3, possibly more from this list. You might be able to incorporate more than one of those under the same point. So think about it. You might have your own ideas as well. Please do use those. You know what to do? Do yourself proud. Really good writing. We want to show not just our parents, not just us teachers. We want to show that St. Gregory's children are excellent independent learners, particularly you in year 5. We've kept on and on about being independent learners. And actually, this is a bit of an aside, but my daughter works in a secondary school. And she said that she wished more of the children she deals with were independent learners, because some of the children coming up to exams thought that lockdown was a time to put their feet up and have a bit of fun. And they are now saying, I wish we had been independent and got on with work. This is a really good practice time for you. We know you can do it. Go on, show us.